Do Manchester City have a huge problem on their hands? Now, that sounds crazy, but when you actually lift the mat up, look underneath the sofa, open the can of Pringles, and there's none in there. I don't know what these analogies are, but when you actually deep it and you look across their squad this season, other than Erling Haaland, they're not scoring an abundance of goals, which, from a Man City's perspective, is not a great thing. They've scored 11 goals in 4 games in the league. They didn't score in the Champions League, right? And Erling Haaland, when he is marked out of games, which he was against by a Serbian Bastoni, from an Inter Milan perspective, or Bissek, it might have been Bissek, not Bastoni. I think that's slightly concerning from a Manchester City perspective. Now, let me know your thoughts. Make sure you go down, drop a like. Make sure you have subscribed. We just hit 23K. Now we're on the road to 25K. So big up to every single person who has watched the channel. Make sure you like it as well. Now, Manchester City are one of the greatest teams I've ever seen in my life. They are the best team in the country right now. They're phenomenal. Defensively, offensively, winning trophies, turning up in the big games. They are the team to beat. They are absolutely brilliant. They really are. When it comes down to Manchester City and Guardiola, they've got the best of the best. But do they actually have a goal scoring problem? They played 5 games this season, and other than Erling Haaland, only 2 players have scored goals in those other games. They are conceding goals as well now, which isn't like Manchester City. Now, notoriously, they don't have a great start normally, but I'm going to cut them some slack. We'll look at the Charity Shield. They had to get past that game on a penalty shootout. Wasn't at their best, but Man United, to a degree, kind of copied their FA Cup performance and were very good. They put in a good performance against Chelsea and toyed with them at parts in that game. I thought they were really, really, really good in that game. Ipswich went 1-0 down early on, and then Erling Haaland announced himself, scores a hat-trick, and then Kevin De Bruyne gets a goal. So that's one of the 2 goals they have scored outside Erling Haaland. They were phenomenal that game. Erling Haaland, his finishing was incredible. Then they beat West Ham. Ruben Diaz scored an own goal. Erling Haaland scored a hat-trick. Clinical display on his finishing. He was very, very, very good. I must say. And then against Brentford, in the first 20 minutes, Man City could go a goal down immediately. If they do that against Arsenal, for whatever reason, if Arsenal go up in the first minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, however long it takes, Man City have really got to do something to score against that Arsenal defence, because they are, at the moment, arguably the best defence in the world. They are keeping clean sheets at a ridiculous rate. They're keeping clean sheets. And if, for whatever reason, if Arsenal do a carbon copy of that Inter Milan defending in terms of, man marking Haaland out of the game, like Serbi did, who else in that? Now, it sounds crazy because Man City is stacked with talent. Savio, Grealish, but there is no De Bruyne in this game. Foden is not 100% fully fit. He didn't start against Brentford, and I think he came off the bench against Inter Milan. And they had 22 shots and only 5 on target. Now, of course, Man City have a lot of match winners in their team. Gundogan, we've seen him over the years. But do they actually have a problem so far this season? Now, Guardiola, I'm sure he will fix it. I have no doubt in my mind that Manchester City, he will somehow change things and they will start scoring goals again. But if we look at this collectively, look at their upcoming fixtures, they have not got an easy run of games. Now, Arsenal at home, last year they didn't score against Arsenal at home or away. Tough game for them. Newcastle United away, Kevin De Bruyne pulled off a masterclass in passing off the bench, and Oscar Wilde got a goal. But that was a tough game for them. Wolves away, Wolves can be a bit of a bogey team for City. In the last couple of years, I mean, you think back to Adama Traore at Wolves, they did a double over them. last year they beat Man City as well. I've got no doubts they'll batter Sparta Prague, Slavian Bratislava, and Watford. And probably Man City will beat Southampton. But if you take out Erling Haaland out of this system, they've only scored 2 Premier League goals. Now, that sounds mental to say because their entire system is about creating goals for Erling Haaland. But it's defensively as well. It's defensively, they've conceded 2 goals less than Arsenal and Liverpool already. And they're on the same goal difference, goals conceded, as Newcastle. And Brighton and Nottingham Forest have also conceded less goals. So they're not as strong defensively as current as Liverpool and Arsenal in terms of goals conceded. Of course, it's early days. Like I said, Guardiola could change things. But I'd be more concerned if I was a City fan in terms of if Haaland, for whatever reason, gets an injury, who comes into that team and scores goals? Who comes into that? Who comes into that system now? I'm trying to think. There's no Alvarez. I guess you could play Foden as a false 9, Savio as a false 9. It's interesting because Manchester City are the best team in the league. They're, for me, second best team in the world behind Real Madrid. But I just thought it was an interesting subject because we don't normally talk about City on this channel because they're just so brilliant and there's not a huge amount of talking points other than their court case. But I've been looking at it recently. They're not scoring abundance of goals outside of Erling Haaland. Now, I do still think they're clear favourites for the Premier League. I do still think Guardiola, one way or another, will win this league. In terms of this Arsenal game at the weekend, if Arsenal decide to come out and play against Manchester City, that's the worst thing they could possibly do, and that would probably open up every single problem for Mikel Arteta. However, if Arsenal go for this defensive, pragmatic, Jose Simeone style of football where they're incredibly hard to beat, they're incredibly strong defensively, and they're good from set pieces, I don't know how City pick the lock. Does Guardiola change things? Does he go for more width and try and bring the fullbacks out wide and then get a couple of runners in behind? Rodri normally turns up in the biggest of games. He's got a great record for Man City. Champions League final goal. You think back at the Emirates a couple of years ago, he got the winner. So I do think City go in as clear favourites. However, do not sleep on Arsenal's tactics. I think what I would like to see from Manchester City in the next few games is maybe a Foden comes on and gets a brace. Maybe a De Bruyne, when back fit, gets a couple of goals. Maybe Savio and Grealish really get involved in the goals. I think it will give Guardiola as well as the rest of the squad huge confidence boost. Of course, they are the best team in the league, so their mentality is to win every single match. No problems with that whatsoever. They are an incredible side. But maybe in terms of what do they do to shut up shop, you could say the goals have come against a run of play. The one against Brentford, first minute, lacks in concentration. The Ipswich goal against the run of play. But who else comes into that team and scores the goals? Do they possibly regret selling Alvarez now? Do they regret it? I think Manchester City right now possibly could do another treble. I think Real Madrid in the Champions League, they didn't look that great. There's talk of Carlo Ancelotti even getting the axe. Barcelona are clearing that league at the moment. Bayern Munich look very, very, very strong. 9 goals in their first game of the Champions League. Goal difference is going to be very, very important. But Man City, of course, will be favourites for the league, favourites if they cup. Can they do the Champions League again? I believe they've got a good enough team. They just need to fix who else is going to contribute the goals. Because if hypothetically tomorrow, if Man City get, for instance, Erling Haaland out of an ACL injury, which very unlikely because he's always seems to be available for them, and he's got a very good record of staying fit and not getting injured. But if the shock did happen, who plays up front for Manchester City? Well, if you look at Liverpool, Jota can play there, Gakpo, Darwin Núñez, Spurs, Richarlison, Son, Solanke, Arsenal, Havertz, Jesus, Trossard. City, they can play there, but do they have an amazing track record of playing there? I'm not so sure. Let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure you drop a like. Make sure you have subscribed. And I will see you all in the next one. Thank you for watching.